Ma'am, shall we start? Bagla ma'am.
Dr. Rathod, he's joining in a couple of minutes. He's having some net issues.
Okay, ma'am.
Just ask who's the tech team.
Monish is there.
Monish, please let in Dr. Tyagi. He'll be coming from BRC, some address.
Sure, ma'am.
Good morning, Indranil sir. Ma'am, Susan Eapen ma'am is also with us today.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I missed the name.
Dr. Susan Eapen.
Okay. Good. Good morning, Dr. Susan. I'm giving you Dr. Tyagi's office number. I would request someone to coordinate.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Sejal, I'll give you. Hello, sir.
Good morning, Thigle sir. It's Rani ma'am.
Hello. Hello. Sir, Nanu. Just inaugurating a conference and giving keynote. That will. ಹೌದು 11:15 ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅದು. ಕೇಳಿ ಸರ್, ನಾನು ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
We can begin. Sir will join in some time.
Okay, shall we start, ma'am?
Yeah.
Over to you, Rajita.
Am I audible? Good morning to one and all present here. Today, on 2nd July, the second year of pandemic, that's coronavirus-induced virus disease 2019, COVID-19, caused by the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus type 2 virus, we all have assembled for a 2 days national virtual conference titled COVID-19 Times Opportunities in Difficulties. Myself, Rajita Satish, Assistant Professor, Department of Microbiology, on behalf of the Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology, Faculty of Science and Technology, KC College, HSNC University, Mumbai, would like to greet our keynote speaker, Dr. V. Ravi, guest of honor who will be joining us soon, Dr. Avesh Tyagi, sir, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, Provost and Trustee, HSNC University, Principal Ma'am, Dr. Hemlata Bagla, our Vice Principals, former teachers of Micro Department, HODs, fellow colleagues, and my dear participants, who all have assembled here to experience the flow of knowledge. Let us start with Saraswati Vandana to invoke divine blessings from Goddess Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge and wisdom.
Rajita, unmute.
Leadership is hard to define, and outstanding leaders are even harder to define, as they not just set a higher standard for others, but inspire others to raise their own bar. It's our pleasure to be led by one such leader who leads from the front, sets an example, inspiring us in every moment. May I now request Dr. Himlata K. Bagla, Principal, KC College, Senior Dean of Science and Technology, HSNC University, Mumbai, Honorary Director of KC College of Management Studies, Head Department of Nuclear and Radiochemistry, Radiological Safety Officer, to deliver the welcome note and address the gathering.
Honorable Provost of HSNC University, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, Nodal Officer for Genomic Confirmation of SARS-CoV from Government of Karnataka, Dr. V. Ravi, who's the renowned virologist and Chairman of Karnataka Genomic Surveillance Committee. Very soon we will have with us Dr. Avesh Tyagi, Associate Director, Chemistry Group, Bhabha Atomic Research Center. We also have with us Dr. Abhay Chaudhary, Professor and Head of the Department of Microbiology, D.Y. Patil University School of Medicine. Scientist, Infectious Disease Biology, Institute of Science, Life Sciences, Bhubaneswar, Dr. Soma Chattopadhyay. Dr. Vainav Patel, Heading Department of Biochemistry and Virology, NIRRH. Vice Principals of KC College. Head Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology, Dr. Sejal Rathore. My colleagues, my dear students, and all the participants of this conference, let me begin by wishing you all a very good morning. Dear friends, Einstein once said, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. Taking this cue, in the middle of the pandemic, our Department of Microbiology and Department of Biotechnology has curated this very important and relevant two-day national conference on COVID-19 times, opportunities and difficulties. I'm glad that we have been academically engaging with this issue institutionally. As a very new and ambitious academic institution, we at HSNC University have geared ourselves to keep finding ways to make our humanity better and better. Taking this opportunity, I share a fact with all of you that we are the only university probably in the world to have had commenced institutionally amidst the difficulties of complete lockdown. Since then, we are growing with victory on every hurdle. And I must say this, that this would not have been possible without the constant spearheading and guidance of our vanguard, mentor, provost, and distinguished trustee of our board, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. Sir is a well-known superstar of real estate. Through his observation, if you observe, one can easily infer that he has always done nothing better than the best. And he expects only that in all of us. Every time we meet him, only one sentence that improve one person daily and do not bother anything else. Sir has always been a brilliant academician at the core. And I'm sure through his role of an ace educationist, the world is going to witness what he calls a paradigm change by new and revolutionary education. As a perennial source of our inspiration, Sir stands with us in all situations. I'm elated to have him amidst us today in this virtual conference. Thank you very much, sir, for giving your time and always being there with us. I'm curious to know Niranjan sir's view on the opportunities and difficulties of this pandemic. Today's conference, we are hosting many sessions by many eminent speakers, but the one who is with us today, Dr. V. Ravi, the distinguished keynote speaker with us today, who is going to speak on the possibility of COVID-19 third wave challenges from vaccinations to mutations. So personally, if I tell you all, I've been reading your articles which came in the month of May, June. Even you have spoken about what your expectation, what you foresee in the month of July, and your predictions by the end of July, 5% of coronavirus samples will be genome sequenced in India. But experts want the state governments to simultaneously pitch in and build capacity. This is what your thought process is, sir. You being virologist and chairman at Karnataka Genomic Surveillance Committee actually have been conveying to the government the possibilities of overcoming this challenge. And not only that, how could we prepare for the future pandemic situations if at all they arise? Sir, it's a delight to be with you today. Thank you so much for joining this morning. And we all are looking forward to your keynote address. Very soon, we will have with us Dr. Abhay Chaudhary, who will be talking about living with COVID-19, occupational safety and health. Dr. Soma Chattopadhyay, who will be the distinguished speaker for and keynote speaker for the valedictory function. She'll be discussing about the challenges to a COVID-19-free future generation. And many more speakers, Dr. Vanav Patel, will be talking about immunopathogenesis of SARS-CoV-2 infection. Indranil Banerjee, I believe he has joined this morning. A warm welcome to Indranil Banerjee too, and thank you for accepting to enlighten us on ongoing scientific research on understanding SARS-CoV-2 infection mechanisms. All the distinguished dignitaries, I would say, and all the research scholars who have joined all across the country, thank you very much for your participation in this very significant conference. Once again, on behalf of HSNC University, I welcome all of you and all the eminent scholars and intellectuals and all the participants of this conference. Friends, counting on the opportunities that the COVID-19 has given to us, I think the most important one is the belief in the scientific innovations. We could manage all the difficulties with the help of various scientific innovations from different fields. In fact, we will be brainstorming on this aspect of the pandemic. Finally, before I conclude, once again, I would say I look forward to listening to each one of you. And I once again thank Dr. Niranjan Hirandani, our Honorable Provost of HSNC University, for being with us. Sir, we are waiting to listen to you. Thank you all, and I have a wonderful, fruitful deliberation in coming these 2 days. Thank you.
Rajita,
Can I speak?
just a moment, sir. Rajita? Oh, Rajita cannot unmute. Host, can you just help?
So we have with us today none other than our Honorable Provost of the HSNC University, President Narejko, and former President ASSOCHAM, even the founding father of Niranjan Hirandani School of Real Estate. Much more to add to his, in the when grandeur we talk about. Now I request Dr. Hirandani to throw light on the topic.
A very, very good morning to each and every one of you. I'm a pleasure and privilege to join this very, very, very eminent panel here to speak on this very important subject. My heartiest congratulations, Dr. Bagla, for organizing this conference under the aegis of the university and your college and the Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology. Congratulations for setting up such a wonderful conference. And also getting the armada of fantastic speakers who will come and actually give us their views on the scientific adventure that we are doing. Dr. V. Ravi, thank you very much for being over here. Fantastic. It's really an opportunity for each and every one of us to learn from you. I believe Dr. Avish Tyagiji is also going to join us very soon. Dr. Priya Abraham, Dr. Abhay Chaudhary, Dr. Vaman Patel, Dr. Sejal Rathod, all of you, we will be looking forward to your insights into this. Last year, when the COVID-19 situation came up, it was a shock. It was something which terrified the entire world and terrified me too. I never imagined in my entire life of 71 years that something like this could even happen. I mean, we've heard of bad things happening, but this kind of devastation was something which we couldn't imagine. We have 45,000 students in our board, and we didn't know how we would possibly reach them. Is education going to be totally stopped? The entire board, the entire principals group, the entire heads of departments, community got together, and within 60 days time, we had 90% of our 45,000 students online. A challenge which we never imagined could happen, could succeed, and we did it. Not only did we do that, many of the examinations we conducted online platforms, something which we had never imagined before. Of course, the students were more clever than the teachers sometimes, and really took undue advantage of the situation of online platforms. But nevertheless, education continued. That was a paradigm which taught us that we could meet one of the greatest difficulties of our time in the education field that so happened together. What happened to the rest of the country? What happened to the medical side? What happened to the supply side? We never thought that we would ever be able to make the PPE kits. We thought that this would only come from China. Within 3 months of our working on the PPE kits, India became not only good enough to supply PPE kits, but we supplied to the rest of the world. Exports of PPE kits really took up. Vaccines, we really found out that our institution had been supplying vaccines. We didn't even know about it, whether it was polio and other vaccines to the World Health Organization and others. Indian companies were doing it. And here too, again, we were able to get 2 of our companies to get the vaccination off the ground. The scientific adventure and the manufacturing capacity became second to none. We also put up a kind of app, which was the COVID app, which really monitored each case. Nobody imagined that the country was prepared, by which each and every person, each and every vaccination was going to be monitored and seen. Is it really good for us? That's another question that we have to separately answer, to the extent of centralization that took place, and it is debatable. But however, the fact is that it could be done, and it was done, something which I think we should admire in terms of the opportunity that took place into these things. We worked on short-term strategies, and there were issues where we were able to provide the lowest cost vaccine in the entire world. Why is it that this was important? Because our country is a poor country, relevant to many of the developed countries of the world. And hence the cost of vaccine was extremely important. And we were able to do so. I think, again, a paradigm which we're doing it. Lots of transaction, fiscal and financial, could not take place. And we really found out, and I was very close because of my presidentship of ASSOCHAM, to be able to conduct the entire financial operations of many companies. And those companies which were working were able to continue and do these operations online. I had a talk with a person, none other than Mr. Uday Kotak of Kotak Bank. And he mentioned to me that 90% of his operations were online during the peak of the pandemic period. That was a huge thing because 90% of his staff were working from home. Again, this is another scientific adventure which really worked very, very well and made a very big difference. Companies like TCS talked about the work from home and be able to service the entire world. Shockingly, at the end of the year, the MD of, the chairman of Tata Sons announced that not only did TCS do well, they increased their total workforce and opportunities by 23% in a COVID year. Something which science and other leadership which took place in India really brought about a lot of opportunity. There was the question of direct money transfers. The Prime Minister decided that the poorest of poor must be given the money. They didn't have to do through intermediaries who normally cheat people. And we were able to do the direct money transfer. Again, the entire scientific world and the opportunities which took place were able to do it. Today, the Supreme Court has already ordered that there will be a national ration card, something which never happened before. So a ration card in UP and a person comes to work in Mumbai or Karnataka or Mangalore or any other place, he would be able to get a ration either from his place, hometown in UP or from Karnataka. Again, something which the entire system of scientific adventure put up a platform which really made a world of a difference. All these aspects of it have really shown us that India can treat every challenge as an opportunity. The leadership of science, the leadership of all the people who are sitting here on the panel, leadership of our educational institutions, our doctors, our hospitals, all these have shown that scientific adventure has converted each of these problems into an opportunity of India. Indians have been ready to face this challenge and has come out on top. This is something we must salute. Not only the medical fraternity, not only the scientific fraternity, not only the economic aspects of it, but every part of India has risen to meet the challenges. Have we faltered? Of course we have faltered. We have faltered on many aspects of it. We could have done better in issues of oxygen. We could have done better in terms of vaccinations. We could have done better in terms of economic transfers. We have learned, but we have learned from this. So I do believe that India has succeeded in many, many aspects and learned lessons in the other aspects. The preparation for the third wave, as has been discussed by Dr. Ravi just now, is going to be an important thing that we can anticipate what is likely to happen and prepare our country in order to see that such a devastation touches us the least. Are we going to be having a difficult time? The answer is yes, of course we will. Will we be able to meet the challenge better now because of the contributions of each and every one of you who is here today? I believe this is a very, very important conference. It signals this part of it, that the scientific world, the Indian world, is ready to meet these challenges, and we will be able to support this nation in order to see this is there. Always, always, these kind of challenges bring out the best in each field, whether the scientific field, the financial field, the political field, the administrative field, the medical fraternity, the pharmaceutical fraternity, the business world. Each one of them must do his little bit or his best or his improvement in order to meet these challenges. I am sure that this conference will go further in order to enlighten each one of us so that we can come out not the best, but better than the best. So I wish you and the entire conference the very, very best. Congratulations to the entire departments of microbiology, biotechnology, the principal, the heads of departments, and the other participants here today in order to work out a good learning. Thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's a pleasure and privilege. I look forward to the conclusions of this conference in order to go ahead with the next thing with a greater vigor than we have done before. Thank you and a good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your inspiring words. Sir, I was just, after listening to you, I just remembered what Mother Teresa had said once. Everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. Just remembered me of the same. And I would like to tell all my dear participants that Niranjan sir has been always been one passionate and successful leader with an untiring zest for excellence, a person distinguished for his educational work, and an extraordinary builder who has also changed the skyline of Mumbai. Thank you, sir. Thank you for gracing us today. I would like to remind of a speech by a Nobel Prize winner, that is Joshua Lederberg. In a speech, he once said, "The single biggest threat to man is continued dominance on this planet is virus. The single biggest threat to man's continued dominance on this planet is virus." To understand this better, especially during the current pandemic, we have with us Dr. Vasantapuram Ravi, MBBS MD Microbiology, also known as Virus Ravi, for his immense contribution in virology. Sir recently retired as a senior professor and the head Department of Neurovirology, of which he was the founder in the year 1985 at National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, Bangalore. On 15th April 2020, when he was appointed as the nodal officer for establishing COVID-19 diagnostic laboratories in the state of Karnataka by ICMR, at that time, there were 15 COVID testing labs in Karnataka. With his tireless efforts, on September 10, 2020, there were 128 COVID-19 testing labs in Karnataka approved by ICMR. Further, in the year 2021, June, Dr. Ravi was appointed as the chairman of Karnataka Genomic Surveillance Committee to assist the Karnataka COVID-19 task force. His major interests include public health virology, pathogenesis, immune response of viral infections of central nervous system, development of indigenous diagnostic assays. He has been responsible for investigation of several outbreaks of viral diseases. His research has centered on development of rapid sensitive diagnostic methods for diagnosis and immunology of viral infections. Dr. Ravi has developed 3 important indigenous diagnostic products in collaboration with Cyton Diagnostics for detection of antibodies to HIV, Japanese encephalitis virus, and cysticerus cellulose. He has a macroarray chip. He has developed a macroarray chip that is simultaneously capable of detecting 16 viruses which cause acute encephalitis syndrome for the first time in the world. He has an European patent, over 170 research papers published in national and international peer-reviewed journals, including 22 chapters in books. He is a master trainer for National AIDS Control Organization, an NABL assessor. He's an expert member of several national task force committees of ICMR across the country, Department of Biotechnology. He's a technical expert for many national and international committees and has served as short-term professional for the WHO office. He has also served as the secretary and president of Indian Association of Medical Microbiologists. Sir is also an honorary visiting professor of microbiology and immunology at University of Liverpool, UK. He has several awards, including the prestigious Sir C.V. Raman Young Scientist Award, Dr. J.V. Srivastav Oration Award, Eminent Medical Virologist Award, Dr. S.C. Agarwal Oration Award, Eminence in Virology Award by Indian Virology Society, just to name a few. Dr. Ravi is also decorated with two prestigious fellowships, the fellowships of National Academy of Medical Sciences, Indian Academy of Sciences, along with the Commonwealth Fellow and the WHO Fellow. He has also been elected as the Distinguished International Fellow of American Society for Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. Sir is the only Indian on the board of International Scientific Advisory Board for Sputnik vaccine. Thank you, sir. We are highly honored to have you with us today. I would like to quote something as George Santana, a philosopher, said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, and learning lessons from the first two waves of the pandemic will ensure that we are well prepared for the future." While some people are still debating if there will be a third wave, it's not whether there will be the next wave, it's the only question when. Indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic has many lessons to offer. These statements are not mine. These are from a paper published in June 2021 in Neurology India, publication of Neurology Society of India, whose author is none other than Ravi. Without taking much time of yours, I would now request Ravi sir himself to throw more light on possibility of COVID-19 third wave, the challenges from vaccination to mutation.
Namaskar. Thank you, Rajita, for a very kind introduction. And let me at the outset thank KC College Mumbai and HNSC University Mumbai for asking me to participate in this important conference. It's a great pleasure to meet Dr. Hiranandani online, and I've had the opportunity of seeing all his accomplishments, and I would like to extend my greetings to the university and Dr. Hiranandani. I also would like to congratulate Dr. Hemlata, Principal, Dr. Sejal Rathod, for organizing such a wonderful conference. All this was possible because of a very dear friend, senior colleague, Dr. Abhay Chaudhary, whom I've known for close to 40 years. And I want to extend my felicitations and greetings to Dr. Abhay as well. I've been asked to talk on possibility of COVID third wave, challenges from vaccination to mutations. So before I start, let me give you a disclaimer, which I always do. All information in this talk is based on scientific evidence. It's not from social media, certainly not from WhatsApp University, which I believe is the world's largest unregulated university, where there are only professors and no students. I wish I had a doctorate, but unfortunately, I don't have a doctorate from WhatsApp University. I have no conflict of interest to declare. I have no shares in any vaccine companies. In fact, I don't have any shares. Somehow that didn't appeal to me, so I've never invested in shares. I try to be factual and not prescriptive because I don't believe I should choose for others because I don't allow others to choose for me. What I will do in the next 20-25 minutes is to introduce COVID and tell you what happened, why did we have such a massive second wave, what lessons we learned, and will there be a third wave? So, when could it occur and what would it look like? That's more astrology. But then after retirement, I've started practicing viral astrology. So, what are COVID-19 variants? What are the vaccines available currently and their efficacies, and what would be the impacts of variants and vaccination, and end with a summary. We all know late December 2019, there emerged a novel coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2, severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2. Coronaviruses as a family is not new to mankind. It's been around for 50 to 60 years. There are many uh, viruses that cause infections in humans, in animals, in birds, in other mammals. As far as human beings are concerned, before the advent of SARS-CoV-2, there were 6 human coronaviruses. 4 of them used to cause mild infections like upper respiratory infections and gastrointestinal symptoms. The first severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus was detected in the beginning of this century in 2002 2003. It originated in southern China. It spread to many countries. Fortunately, India was spared and it was contained largely due to containment measures. Then in 2012, we had a related severe respiratory syndrome virus from Middle East known as MERS coronavirus. This also spread to some countries. It is still causing infections in the Middle East, but again, fortunately, India did not get this infection. The name is derived from the appearance. You can see a cartoon on the left. Coronaviruses are spherical and on their surface, they are studded with a spike protein that gives the virus an appearance of a crown. They're widely distributed in nature. Most importantly, they spill over from one species to another, making them cause pandemics. And that's what we have seen now with this particular virus. Rajita was referring to a quote which I am very fond of, and that is by George Santayana. And George Santayana was a very well-known philosopher, essayist, and poet, and a novelist. He said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it," and how very true it is. So, this is a graph you are looking at on the screen, which actually is 100 years old. It is about the Spanish flu cases that occurred in England, the Wales County of England, actually. The y-axis is the number of people infected. The x-axis is the timeline. You can see there were 3 waves of Spanish flu, the pandemic flu, that occurred during 1918, 1990. And these 3 waves were of different magnitude. The first one was short. There was a gap of 3 to 5 months. There was a huge second wave. Again, there was a gap of 3 to 4 months. And then again came the third wave. The reason I'm showing you this is all respiratory viruses occur in pandemics and they occur in wave forms. If somebody tells me that we did not know this, I think that's a lie. We know pandemics occur in wave form. We know that the reason for it, because in between the waves, there is a lot of responsible behavior on the part of human beings. And waves come down because there are restrictions imposed on human to human contact. So, although several pundits at the end of November wrote elegant articles saying that India will not have second wave, we are different, we have conquered it, we are a great society. Human beings are the same all over the world. Some of us were dubbed as mad when we said there will be a second wave and it will be in March, April. And lo and behold, we had a second wave. And the second wave in India was much, much beyond expectations. In terms of its magnitude, it was 5 times greater than the first wave. India is a very populous country, so the number of cases that we encountered were very high. Why did this occur? I think, in spite of many of us warning that there could be a second wave, people should behave responsibly. It was not heeded, and therefore we had a second wave. And what ignited the second wave were small sparks known as super spreading events, which started occurring in towns and cities, be it apartment complexes, be it partying halls, be it hostels. Small super spreading events started occurring. Many of these sparks lit into a fire, and the fire was fueled primarily by lack of responsible COVID appropriate behavior, which means people were not wearing masks, there was crowding, and people started gathering in closed spaces. And to top it all, we had rallies, religious congregations, and elections. Of course, the cream on this entire cake was the emergence of new variants of SARS-CoV, which were far more infectious. Now, you had all the ingredients for the second wave to blow up in our face. Consequently, this second wave was very steep. It was huge in terms of the burden. It caught all of us unawares, especially the health systems was unaware. And we also knew that different states started peaking at different levels. So I think India is not one country. I always say India in terms of population is 30 countries. Each state has a population of many of the countries in the world. As a result, we systems responded late. So what is the road ahead? My very, very favorite slide on the left, a road which has many speed breakers or humps, road humps. This is what it is going to look like. Whenever there are small super spreading events, it will lead to an outbreak, it will lead to a surge, and at that time, we need to slow down. In the first wave, we gave a lot of importance to lives. So we completely locked down. When we unopened, we were gung-ho that we have conquered Corona, and then we said livelihoods are very important. Even when cases started increasing, people were still talking about livelihoods. So we as a nation are very polarized. We say lives on one side, we say livelihoods on the other side. But I think there is a middle path where both are important. And that's where this figure, this picture that I'm showing you is very important. Whenever there is a small surge in any small locality, one should immediately impose curbs, lockdowns locally, or contain the zone, prevent the spread from going out of there. That's like going on a speed breaker or a hump. You slow down. If you don't, you'll be thrown off your vehicle or you'll hit the ceiling. So we have to learn to have interrupted in between slowing down activities whenever there is a surge. The picture on the right shows you three types of waves. We are more like the middle picture. The second wave was huge. How tall will the third wave be? It's very, very difficult. It's all in the hands of people. Here is the prediction by Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur, and they have been very accurate in forecasting outbreaks. You can see the black line on the left. The blue hill is the number of reported cases. The black is the 7-day moving average. The 7-day moving average is in any given geographic area, the number of positive tests by the total number of tests for 7 days. And that average is called 7-day average. The SIR model, that is the model, actually is very close to the black line. So I think they are very reliable in their predictions, and they have predicted that between September and January, we will have the third wave. How tall this third wave will be will depend on several factors. How responsible people are. If there are people with wearing masks, maintaining distance, and we vaccinate a large number of people, which we wish to do, then it will be shallow, like the blue dotted line on the right. If we continue what we are doing now, not vaccinating aggressively, not wearing masks, not caring for anything, then we'll have a very tall third wave, like the pink interrupted line. If a little bit balanced in terms of appropriate behavior as well as vaccination, then you will have a wave that is slightly shallower than the second wave. We will have a third wave for sure for two important reasons. SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus. The only way you get immunity to this virus is either through infection and recovering from the infection or through vaccination. We know that all of us are not infected. We also know that all of us have not received vaccine, at least the 100 crore adults. Forget the 30 crore children. They don't have a vaccine. Therefore, more than half or 60% of the population is either exposed to the virus, they are not infected, or they are not vaccinated. So that leaves a huge susceptible pool, and being a new virus to humanity, it will catch the last human being on the planet before it becomes endemic. Believe me, that's the nature of the virus. When and what to expect? The graph showed you that anywhere between September to January, you'll have the third wave. Usually, after wave subsides, within 3 to 5 months, you can expect the second wave. The reasons for it are very simple. During the peak of a wave, there are lockdowns, and then human contact is prohibited. So infections come down, the wave subsides. People at that time realize that masking is important and maintaining distance and avoiding crowds. But over time, they forget. We know more about the virus, the disease, its mutations, its vaccines, but we know less about human behavior. So there will be a third wave. And it also depends on how many people we can get vaccinated. Between the first and second wave, we did not have vaccine available extensively. So that's a new tool that is available. So more aggressive we are on vaccination, the more we can contain the third wave. Children are going to be a very big vulnerable group. I was one of the first people to have blown the whistle on this and not liked for it. My point is very simple. Between the first wave and second wave, more children got infected. Children were protected. They were at home. Now we are opening up, they will come out. And most importantly, vaccines have not been licensed for children yet as of today. It's likely to come in a month or two. So, because they are protected, not many of them are infected, and there is no vaccine, they are a huge susceptible pool and they will get infected. Good news is most children have mild illness and they recover completely. However, considering that there are 30 crore children in this country between 0 and 18 years, even if a small fraction gets severe disease and a very small fraction develop a very serious complication, multi-inflammatory syndrome following COVID or MISC, even if you say it is 0.5% or 1% of this 30 crore, do we have the wherewithal to manage them? Therefore, in selfish interest, I think it is important that we prepare for tackling surge in children. The least we can do is get our pediatric intensive care act together up to the district level, have ventilators which are special for children, and have training programs. What should we be doing from now to the third wave? We have to wear masks, maintain social distance. Most importantly, avoid all types of crowding, gatherings, rallies, and elections. No for 1 year. Closed spaces are highest risk. And we should continue to maintain our bed capacity, our oxygen capacity, and essential drugs, because remember, still 50% of adults are not infected or vaccinated. Our schools and colleges, I'm not an expert, so I leave it to education, is whether we should open completely, whether it should have a hybrid mode of offline, online, or it's going to be online, I don't know. But even if whenever we open, we should be monitoring students and in institutions doing testing. Testing is one very important tool. We cannot lower testing because we have to keep the test positivity rate way below 5%, ideally around 1 to 2%. And how do we do that? For every positive person, we should be tracing minimum 20 contacts and subjecting them to testing. Government of India has put out a lot of advisories, like you see on this slide, on how to blunt the third wave. Your COVID appropriate behavior, enhanced vaccination, and of course, from the laboratory side, enhanced sequencing to measure variants. That takes us to the next part of my talk on variants. This is a term that, COVID has introduced a number of new words to English vocabulary, and I like that. And one of them is variants, and everybody talks about variants now. Now, variants are nothing but a different form of SARS-CoV-2. Whenever SARS-CoV-2 multiplies, you all know it's an RNA virus, it makes mistakes. It makes mistakes because the enzyme that copies the genetic material of SARS-CoV-2, which is called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, makes mistakes. It lacks proofreading ability. When it copies the 30,000 nucleotides, usually there are one or two mistakes, which means the daughter strand has only 29,999 correct. When these mutations accumulate in the virus genetic material, especially in key areas, it can change the protein structure, the amino acid. And amino acid changes the structure and the surface charge. So rendering a virus either more infectious or less infectious. If you're less infectious, it will not survive, because that is Darwinian principle of evolution. The fittest survive. So that is how Corona surprised us. Nobody imagined coronaviruses to have this degree of mutation. And remember, the pandemic gave it an opportunity to spread to millions of people, and in each person, every day, millions of particles are produced, so more variants are emerging. The second reason why variants emerge is because immune pressure, either following infection or plasma therapy or vaccination, the virus can change. One of the first mutations noticed in coronavirus was almost a year and a half ago, in late February 2020. It was reported from from Italy actually. It's a mutation in the spike protein. And the mutation was at position 614 from aspartic acid to glycine. That was the change in amino acid. And this rendered the virus far more infectious than the parent Wuhan virus. And as you can see in the graph on the top, the orange became blue. That means the D614, which was prevalent, was replaced by D614G. In a matter of month, an entire globe, almost in a month's time, more than 50% of new infections were due to this clade. So this is the grandmother variant. Please remember that. All recent variants that have emerged have the same mutation plus additional mutations in spike protein and other regions. Now they have in the pangolin lineage, originally viruses were classified as A, B, C, and D. And within B is the D614G, and that started mutating further. So it went on increasing numbers in terms of B 1.1.7. It got too complicated. So WHO got involved and they gave simple nomenclature like alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. In the last 6 months, 4 important variants have emerged, and they have been called variants of concern. They are alpha, which was detected in UK, popularly known as UK variant; beta, detected in South Africa and called South African variant; gamma from Brazil; and delta reported first in India. Now, these variants have certain signature mutations. I will not go into the details. I can share the slides with you, and each of them have a signature mutation. For example, the UK variant has an amino acid change at 501 from N to Y, and the South African one has this plus another change at 484, and so on. So I won't go into the details, but I can take questions. What are the implications of these? Okay, these implications, this is a very busy table. Go to the right extreme, and there are 3 columns with colored boxes. Now, what are these implications? These variants have implication for better transmission, for virulence, and antigenicity. All the variants that I described, alpha, beta, gamma, and delta, have increased transmissibility. Alpha was 40% more infectious than the parent Wuhan virus that was circulating. Then came beta, which was a little more infectious than gamma. And of course, then came delta, which was detected in India, which is 60% more infectious than alpha. So that means it's 160% more infectious than the parent virus. It can spread fast to more number of people. In terms of virulence, there's not much change compared to the parent virus. So virulence is more or less same. That means disease causing capability and severity is the same. In terms of evading immune response, the South African variant is notorious to escape neutralization by antibodies, monoclonal antibodies. The UK variant, the alpha, was moderate. The delta is moderate, and so also the Brazilian variant. India has started sequencing for variants right from January. It has established an Indian SARS-CoV-2 Genomics Consortium between the Ministry of Health and Department of Biotechnology. Till yesterday, there were 10 labs. Since yesterday, another 18 have been added. There are 28 labs. All of these are in government institutions. And the institute where I worked earlier, NIMHANS, is one of the INSACOG labs. The INSACOG has so far sequenced 45,000 samples, and it has contributed to important things globally. One is detection of Delta variant and also the Delta plus variant. The INSACOG is systematically collecting samples. The objective are to detect new variants and to link it up to public health data in terms of how it is responsible. Samples are sent to a lab where RNA is extracted, and if the CT value is less than 25 for the sample in PCR, it is taken up for genomic sequencing, where it is converted to cDNA, a library is prepared and then run on the machine, and then data analysis. The whole process takes anywhere between a week to 10 days. The strategy for sampling in India has been very well worked out based on the WHO recommendations. There will be 10 sites in every state, 5 hospitals and 5 labs, and every 15 days, each site will collect 15 samples. Now, these 15 samples will be from international travelers, from clusters and outbreaks within those districts, where cases of reinfection, cases of breakthrough infection, where people have received 2 doses of vaccine and turned positive, and of course, any new clinical manifestation, those cases, and of course, pediatric cases. What INSACOG has shown is that starting from January, December end, when UK variant entered India and started spreading, we had a local Delta variant, and then by middle of March, the Delta variant emerged and it completely replaced. You can see that pink colored bar replacing completely the UK variant as well as the other variants that were circulating. And now the entire country is dominated by the UK variant. Very recently, the United Kingdom Public Health Agency has declared the detection of a sublineage within Delta, which is doing the rounds in newspapers. This is called Delta Plus. The Delta Plus is Delta virus with an additional mutation at position 417 in the spike protein, and this is within the receptor binding domain. And this change is from lysine, which is K, to asparagine, which is N. Now, this important mutation, mind you, is also found in the South African variant. How did it come into Delta? Is it de novo? We do not know. But virologists are also now talking about possibility of recombination in coronaviruses. If an individual can get infected simultaneously with beta variant and delta variant and they recombine, then you can throw up such hybrids. So delta variant, the delta plus variant is a variant of concern as it was declared, but last night the WHO said there is not a variant of concern, and because whatever information we have right now are the delta plus cases were all patients whose samples were collected more than 6 weeks ago. If it were more infectious and if it was more dangerous, by this time we should have seen surge in all the countries. So it is unlikely that it is more infectious than delta plus. The only thing we know is that it escapes monoclonal antibody treatment. That is understandable because monoclonal antibody treatments are directed against the receptor binding domain of spike protein virus. So right now, this is a variant to watch for, nothing to be concerned. This was first reported in Public Health England. So is it more infectious? It doesn't look like. Will it replace Delta and cause sweeping outbreaks, at least in 8 weeks, that we have not seen such a huge takeover like Delta took over? Will the current vaccines work against Delta plus variant? Preliminary results from UK have shown yes, it works. National Institute of Virology is doing work, and I believe it will work to a lesser efficiency. When we say vaccines work, we'll come to that when I talk about vaccines. Human beings are very greedy. They expect vaccines to do everything. But these vaccines are doing a great job. Should be unduly concerned, worried, panic? We should be worried. Unduly concerned, we should not panic. Okay. Now moving on to vaccines, COVID is an unprecedented in the history of medicine for producing fantastic vaccines within a matter of 6 months from the onset of the pandemic. And for the first time in medical history, we used 2 different types of vaccines that were never used. Conventional vaccines were growing the virus and either attenuating it or killing it, inactivating it, purifying it, and using it as a vaccine. COVID provided 2 new technologies, platform technologies. One was to use genetic material. And here we have used RNA for the first time. And that's a fantastic achievement. And I think it will get the Nobel Prize. Injecting RNA encoding spike protein encapsulated in a lipid envelope, delivering it into the cell so that it can translate and make spike proteins. And this has huge implications for many other diseases. I'm sure people will exploit it post-COVID. Second is piggybacking spike protein in other innocuous viruses called viral vectored vaccines. Again, for the first time, mass use we are doing. And also remember, COVID-19 is the largest adult vaccination program in the history of medicine. The 2 viral vectored vaccines are the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine made by Serum Institute called Covishield, and the Russian Gamaleya Laboratories vaccine known as the Sputnik vaccine. The mRNA vaccines, Moderna has been licensed 2 days back in India. Pfizer is awaiting license. Covaxin, of course, is our own Atmanirbhar vaccine produced in India. What do vaccines do? they induce in vaccination, you are deliberately pumping the immune system with an abnormally high amount of protein to generate a potent response. In natural infection, you don't see that dose of viral spike protein or viral proteins. So that is, and you need two doses. Why you need two doses? Because the first is a priming dose. It primes the immune system. The second boosts, kicks the immune system and say, get into action. What do we need from a vaccine? All viral vaccines made till today protect against disease and death. Somehow there is a lot of expectation from COVID vaccines that it will also prevent infection. Thank God it is not preventing infection, because at least some things human beings should do, no? They should wear masks and stay away from each other. Otherwise, you give a vaccine that prevents infection, you know what will happen to our population. They will go completely crazy. I think it is very, very unreasonable to expect COVID vaccines to prevent infection. It reduces transmission, but it does not guarantee against infection. Till we get better vaccines, there are some in the pipeline promising nasal vaccines that will give sterilizing immunity. We have to live with this. All vaccines excepting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine on the right are 2 doses. We need 2 doses. The space between 2 doses vary, and the one has to adhere it. As of now, the government of India does not permit interchangeability of vaccines between the 2 doses, but trials are going on, and I'm sure in future that will happen. India's vaccination coverage has reached 33 crore, almost 34 crore as of yesterday. And all these people have received 1 dose. About 5% of them have received 2 doses. To get protection, you need 2 doses and 2 weeks gap after 2 doses to get protection. And the coverage varies from various states. Maharashtra and Karnataka are doing very well in terms of coverage. There are some states that are very, very poor. And I'm surprised Tamil Nadu is way in the bottom. It's a state that's supposed to have good immunization and health systems, but somehow there is hesitancy there. Do vaccines work? A very large study of close to around 80,000 people in Tamil Nadu police force, NIE, conducted the study and showed that after a single dose of vaccine, 82% of police personnel were protected against severe disease and death. And this increased to 95% after 2 doses. For heaven's sake, vaccines work. Variant or no variant, when I say it works because it prevents disease, it prevents severe disease, and it prevents death. What more do you want from a vaccine? So please recommend to everybody to take vaccination. And here is data published in NEJM some time back against variants. Against all variants, bottom line is same. There is no death, there is no severe disease. But in terms of preventing infection, it varies. The mRNA vaccines seem to be better. Sputnik seems to be better. AstraZeneca is moderate. The Sinovac, which is from China, is the worst. It has 50% efficacy against infection. When I say efficacy, I'm talking about infections. Bharat Biotech is in between, it's around 78%. Bharat Biotech vaccine, being our own vaccine, NIV has shown that it generates equal amount of neutralizing antibodies to the UK variant, to the Delta variant, as well as the Brazilian variant. Vaccines do not protect against infection. Here is breakthrough infection data from Indian Council of Medical Research. The rate of infection following 1 dose of vaccination is around 0.04%. And it's almost same after 2 doses. This is much less compared to the breakthrough infections seen after mRNA vaccines. So vaccination does not guarantee protection against infection. It reduces transmission, it reduces infection, but still people can get infected and they can transmit, so they should continue to wear masks. Many myths. Anti-vaccine lobbies have had a field day in social media telling that vaccines are rushed, they are not safe. Absolute rubbish. It has gone through all rigorous testing. It does not alter your genetic makeup. It does not give you COVID. It does not contain egg protein. It does not cause severe side effects. The probability is 0.05%. Any injection that you take, you will have severe side effects. The benefits of vaccination far outweigh the risks of vaccination. And it does not make women fertile, and women also can take the vaccine during their periods. All myths circulated in WhatsApp University. In summary, SARS-CoV-2 is a new pathogen. It's contagious. It can spread quickly. It's capable of causing enormous economic and social impacts. You have to either be infected or vaccinated. If not, the virus will definitely catch you. The road ahead is going to be bumpy. Many waves. Size of the waves will depend on vaccination and how people behave. You cannot prevent variants from emerging. That is the rule of nature. We have to keep track of them. And all vaccines available currently are effective against all types of variants. So I think unless a new variant emerges, vaccines will continue to be effective. Thank you. One way to protect yourself is to get vaccinated. Wear masks, maintain distance. Remember, your protection is your responsibility. Nobody wants to come and give you COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request the participants to post their questions in the chat box?
So it was immensely insightful lecture. There are no words to express my gratitude to you and how much you have inspired students today and the researchers. While watching you present and seeing the slides, I was inspired to do a review paper. So I would put my team to do review on the various viruses, and so much was there to learn and to absorb. Thank you so much, sir. I request students and participants to put up questions, please.
We have
Pratibha, can you take the questions? There are a couple of them in the chat box.
Yeah, I shall. So there's one question. How do experts assume the third wave and will affect children?
I think there's a misconception there. Third wave will affect adults and children. All adults who are not infected or vaccinated will come down with COVID. And children. Children are going to be more in the third wave because we will not be able to vaccinate all of them before the third wave. And we are going to open up schools. They're going to come out of their cocoons of their house. One way of preventing children from getting infected, one strategy one has to use is immediately vaccinate parents of children. Children get infection at home and from school. So at least at home, they can prevent it. So because they are, last year there were wonderful papers published saying ACE2 receptors are less in children, they won't get infected, all rubbish. COVID is one disease where we are learning everything. We are overturning what we learned yesterday. It's a very dynamic situation. Children get equally infected. Thank God the manifestations are mild in children. But the proportion of children is so huge in the country, one has to seize the opportunity to get our infrastructure ready. That's my personal selfish ambition, having worked in encephalitis for 30 years, looking at the pathetic facilities in districts. I believe this is the time to seize the opportunity and get things ready for children. So children and adults will be equally infected. Proportion of children in third wave will be much, much more than first and second waves. Over.
Answering that. So there is one common question which many people are asking, that how do we check efficacy of different viruses, vaccines?
The efficacy is a numbers game. What happens is I'm sure all of you know there are 4 phases in any vaccine trial. We have completed phase 3 trials for most vaccine. Phase 1 is safety. Phase 2 is looking at whether the right type of immune response is being produced. And phase 3 is adjuvant test where efficacy is done. How do you do it? You divide, classically, the numbers required for phase 3 COVID vaccines are 25 to 50,000 volunteers. 3/4 of them will receive the vaccine, 1/4 of them will receive not a vaccine, but some other injection that doesn't do any harm. Then you look at, after the requisite doses and 2 to 3 weeks interval, you look at SARS-CoV-2 infection in the vaccinated population and in the unvaccinated population. And then you count the number of infections. If the number of infections are less, what percentage it is less in the vaccinated people, you express it as efficacy. The other more important parameter of measuring efficacy is how many develop disease and how many die. Fortunately, if you look at the trial data and read the papers, almost all vaccines are more than 95% effective when it comes to severe disease and death. But in terms of infection, they vary.
So there's one question where they are asking how much is the percentage chance for an individual to get infected once the person has healed and the person has taken a vaccine? How much is the percentage of chance the person getting reinfected again?
In the first wave, when there was no vaccine, it was less than 5% reinfection. What is reinfection? Let me define. You recover from a COVID episode and you have a negative RT-PCR report, and then within a few weeks, you again show symptoms and you are RT-PCR positive. That's the correct definition of reinfection. There's a small proportion of people who shed virus and who reactivate existing infection because of their poor immune response. That is reactivation. It has to be differentiated. There, the PCR would never have been negative for the 6 to 8 weeks the person had the infection. So reinfections, there should be a negative in between. The percentage of reinfections was less than 5% during the first wave. The percentage reinfections in the second wave was between 15 to 20%. Now in the third wave also you will have reinfections. Now what causes reinfections? There are two things. One is variants will cause reinfection. And two is there's always a proportion of people who do not mount the optimal response to vaccination. There will be 5 to 10% of people who will not respond to 2 doses. They may require an additional dose. This is known in any vaccination. No vaccine is 100% effective. So reinfections will be there. And also the second most important variable is emergence of new variants that are more infectious.
Sir, are the current vaccines effective against the Delta Plus variant?
Whatever information Public Health England has produced, quickly taken sera from people who are vaccinated with the AstraZeneca vaccine and mRNA vaccines. They've done neutralization in the lab and they've shown that it does neutralize Delta as well as Delta Plus.
Okay, I think we are summing up with the questions. Similar questions have been asked. There's one last question. Vaccine, is it safe for lactating mothers?
Absolutely, it is now recommended. It's included in the Government of India advisory, which came up about almost 3 to 4 weeks back. In fact, very soon it will be also probably permitted for pregnant women. Right now it is not, but it may come any time now. The pregnant women also may take the vaccine, especially in second and third trimester.
Last question we'll take. How much time the memory for vaccine will remain?
Well, there was a very recent, very elegant paper published in Nature Medicine, which said following infection as well as following vaccination, the memory B cells are found active in the follicles of the lymph nodes in the axillary region for up to 8 months, 6 to 8 months. So how long memory will last? We know now that people who participated in trials sometime last year still are having protective level of antibody, majority of them. So we can safely say 8 to 9 months for mRNA vaccines. For Covishield and Covaxin, the trials were much later, so at least 6 months. Whether we will require a booster, it's too early to say. If the antibodies decay, we know after natural infection, between 3 to 5 months, antibodies will start coming down to below detectable levels. That's why we say people who are already infected also need vaccine, because vaccine will boost the response and maintain it at a high level to prevent reinfection. So it looks like for a year we will have antibodies. Whether we will require booster or not, today's papers you must have all seen. Moscow is advocating a booster dose for all its citizens because Delta started spreading there. So we may have to remember, whenever you use subunit vaccines like spike protein vaccines, whenever there's a mutation, you will require to probably give a booster. Whole virus vaccines have the advantage of exposing the immune system to a large number of antigens. I always give an example. Whole virus vaccines are like a buffet. You get the benefit of all the dishes on the table, whereas spike protein vaccines a la carte, you get only what you order. You get spike protein responses. And in conventionally speaking, wisdom says that if you have a whole virus vaccine, if you cannot catch the virus by spike protein, you can catch it by some other protein. As the saying goes, if you cannot catch the lion by its head, you can catch it by its tail.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions so patiently. The lecture was so lucid that most of the questions were answered. Thank you so much, sir, once again. Rachita, over to you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. Sejal Rathod, Conference Convener, Head Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Rajita. It is indeed my proud privilege to present the vote of thanks for the inauguration session of this two-day national conference. On behalf of Microbiology and Biotechnology Departments, Casey College, Faculty of Science and Technology, HSNC University, I, Dr. Sejal Rathod, convener of the conference, would like to begin thanking by expressing deep gratitude to our keynote speaker, an eminent virologist, Dr. V. Ravi. Sir, we have been really fortunate for having you with us today and getting a chance listening to your address. I would like to thank Dr. Abhay Chaudhary for giving us this opportunity. So having heard you on the possibility of COVID-19 third wave, challenges from vaccination to mutations, so your profundity on the topics of the third wave, variants, vaccines was so intriguing and enriching. I'm sure that everyone present here today have gained immensely in terms of their queries solved and doubts resolved. Thank you, sir. Heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to the gracious presence of our respected Provost, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. Thank you, sir. As always, we are highly motivated and inspired by your address. Gratitude to our own Senior Dean, Science and Technology, HSNC University, Principal, Casey College, Dr. Hemrata Barla. Thank you, ma'am, for being a guiding light and entrusting us with the responsibility of organizing this conference that is so significant in these current times. I would like to thank our vice principals, Mr. Smarjit Padi, Dr. Tejashree Shanbag, Dr. Shalini Sinha, and Mr. Justin for their constant support and encouragement. Gratitude to all the eminent scientists that we have with us today, Dr. Jayaraman, Dr. Susan Yeppin, Dr. Surekha Zingde, for being with us today. Thank you so much. All the previous heads of the departments, current head of the departments of the college, senior teachers, Prabha ma'am, Dabolkar sir, fellow colleagues, thank you for being with us in this inauguration session of the conference. Dear participants, thank you for your active and patient listening and asking such apt questions which all of us had in our minds. I would like to thank Monish, without whose technical support conducting this conference on virtual platform would have been really difficult. Last but not the least, deepest gratitude to the organizing team, my teachers from Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology for bringing this program so wonderfully together. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. May I now request Tarun Soda sir and Hajra to please continue with the next session.
Thank you, Ravi sir. It was wonderful having you amidst us. Thank you so much, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to introduce the second speaker for the day, Dr. Abhay Chaudhary, who is a professor and head Department of Microbiology at the D.Y. Patil School of Medicine, Navi Mumbai. Sir was professor and head of Department of Microbiology, Grant Medical College and Sir J.J. College of Hospitals, Mumbai from 2005 to 2018. Sir has also been the administrator, Maharashtra Medical Council from 2016 to 17. And Dr. Abhay Chaudhary was a director and head of virology and immunology at the prestigious Hafkin Institute, Mumbai, for India between, you can say, 2008 to 2015. Sir has also been a director of AIDS Research and Control Center, Hospital, Mumbai, during 2005 to 2009. Sir has an experience of 40 years as a postgraduate teacher in clinical microbiology and as professor and head of microbiology department at Grant Medical College and Sir J.J. Hospital, Mumbai, and also at, you can say, SBH Government Medical College, Dhule. Sir has also served as an advisor and consultant in the field of laboratory medicine, HIV/AIDS, healthcare safety and quality management systems in clinical laboratory. Sir is also the chair. Sir was also chairman of BOS, that is a member of super specialty subjects, member of faculty medicine, and member of academic council of MUHS. Sir has an expert team. Sir has been an expert team member for assessment of national reference laboratories and state reference laboratories under National AIDS Control Organization, that is NACO, under Government of India from 2008 to 2010. Sir has received a Fogarty Fellowship for training at Johns Hopkins University, USA in 2003. Sir has also been certified as a technical assessor for NABL and NABH. Sir was a member of the Standing Committee on Zoonosis, Ministry and Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, and he has served on editorial boards of international journals of STDs, that is sexually transmitted diseases, and AIDS, and several peer-reviewed journals. And his expertise and special interests include medical virology, clinical microbiology, parasitology, and etc. Abhay Chaudhary sir was the secretary of Indian Association of Medical Microbiologists, and he has also been a secretary of Infectious Diseases Society of India, that is IDSI. Sir has also been a president of Indian Association of Medical Microbiologists, and there are many awards and accolades to Sir's credit. Dr. Abhay Chaudhary was awarded as a Lifetime Achievement Award in Microbiology by Indian Association of Applied Microbiologists in the year 2010, and a Presidential Oration Award by Indian Association of Medical Microbiologists in 2010. He has also been awarded Innovations in Science and Technology Award in 2011 by SARC. Dr. W.H. Hafkin Oration Award was also conferred upon by Sir by Hebrew University at Jerusalem, Israel. IDMA Research Award in 2013 for Best Research Paper by Indian Drug Manufacturers Association has also been conferred on Sir. Professor Dr. S. Subramaniam Oration Award 2014, which was awarded for excellence and significant contribution to the field of medical and pharmaceutical virology in India by International Association of Medical and Pharmaceutical, you can say, virologists. Sir has also been a recipient of Professor's Award, Best Professor's Award in 2018 at Government Medical College and Sir J.J. Hospital, Mumbai. On the Republic Day, he was awarded the award on 26 January 2018. With these few words, I would like to invite Sir to address the gathering. Please, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaste, sir.
A very good afternoon to all. Because this is good morning rather. I bring greetings from D.Y. Patil University School of Medicine to HSNC University and KC College. And at the outset, I thank the organizers for inviting me and my friend together because Ravi is a great orator and virologist. In fact, he had started his own way of putting a long form of his name V Ravi to virus Ravi. And well, it's always a pleasure and a difficult task to speak after him. So normally I would like to avoid that, but then well, it is a organizer's prerogative, so I accept it. No problem with that. Anyway, the topic. Are the slides seen?
Yes, sir. You can go in the full screen mode.
No, with the full screen.
Monish?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. The topic given to me is living with COVID-19, occupational safety and health. And this is what is important when I say that occupational health is a subset of environmental health, and there are various types of hazards at workplace. Now, this includes all the workplaces. So occupational health as such, and we have seen that COVID has affected everyone in the whole world, and this is unprecedented kind of infectious disease that has been presented as a pandemic. Although we are not very aware, we are not very new to the word pandemic or the appearance of pandemics. We have seen earlier HIV pandemic in the previous century. But we started with influenza. We also had a couple of SARS area being presented. But the whole world, more than 180 countries being reporting this is something which is unprecedented. And I don't say that it is always challenging because there are some things which we find that the diseases may occur naturally, but something is tweaked, and that is why it is more worrisome. Anyway, but I'll speak to touch that area a little later. There are different hazards at workplace: the physical hazards, the chemical hazards, the biological hazards, and ergonomics, and the psychological hazards. Now, these are related to occupational health as such, and different areas are under which we can classify the risks or the hazards as the dimension may be. But the point to be remembered here is, although we are dealing with COVID as a disease, various ramifications of that has been noted, and it has resulted in the physical hazards also. Then some chemical accidents have happened. So we have dealt with that, and biological, of course, was there. So we have dealt with this within the pandemic. There are various hazards which were exposed or we were exposed to. Occupational health and safety is an important area where we have to have the assessment of that hazard, and we try to correct that. Perhaps the most critical elements of that is about the effective safety program, which is regular and honest. Safety audits are required to identify and correct the workplace hazards. For that, we require training, education. We have some policies and procedures which were established, but we had to establish new and in a very short span, and that is unique about this COVID. We have also seen about the measurement of the hazards or the risks which are there and the management issues related to that. Now, if you see the hierarchy of occupational health and the safety of it, the first and the most foremost is elimination of that. Now, in relation with COVID, we say we eliminate COVID and then we will deal with this in a better fashion. or there is something called as substitution. Now, although in substitution, we are not really literally meaning by substituting it other disease, but with artificial challenge in which we are giving vaccines and we are putting that challenge immunologically and trying to avoid or minimize the risk of hazard of COVID, and that is minimizing the severe form of disease or preventing that severe disease and the deaths obviously following. There are some engineering controls which we are required in occupational safety, and if we take that corollary later, we will see how it can be added to that. We can add some administrative controls, and this is one area where COVID-19 has taught us and has given us opportunities for developing more and more controls at administrative level in the form of changing the acts, in modifying acts, and in delivering the things which are required to eliminate or to reduce COVID transmission. And then, of course, there are personal protective equipment. Now, these are generally at a personal level, and normally in occupational health, that is the last resort or the least sought resort, because that is for personal safety. And in occupational safety, we deal with the occupations and all different aspects or patterns of the occupation which is there. In elimination, we have to eliminate the disease as such, if it's in relation with the COVID-19. And similarly, there are a lot of engineering controls. Initially, we had seen that they're maximizing air exchanges because it is in a droplet infection form. And initially, it was also thought that there could be some airborne. It is airborne, but it is for short distance because of the droplet transmission which is there. And then, of course, we have seen the toxicity related to oxygen leakage and several other things which are part of the hospital or part of dealing with the health systems, which is part of the controls which we can impose on that. And of course, there are various laws related to that, administrative control, the safe work practices, etc., where it would be important that we have to have the infection control practices, which are mandatorily made through the administrative controls as well as through the safe work practices and the inhibitions which are kept up, which are in the form of lockdown and the different categories of lockdown, and all those things are there. Personally, personal protective equipments or PPE are important, related to the gowns, surgical masks, gloves, and this is not only to the healthcare workers but to all others also. And this is very important for personally, but although in occupations we will see that. Now, corona is there everywhere, although we see this sneezing attacks, which would be there with flu, and initially we would put it as influenza-like illness or flu. We may not be able to differentiate between the corona and other influenza or common cold virus unless we have a testing done in a laboratory and confirming it as such. WHO has given initially a lot of measures which were mainly for the healthcare workers and the frontline workers or the early responders who were there, and they were the ones where the occupational health services related to these were very important. So initially their rights, roles, responsibilities, all these guidelines are given. I will not go in details of it, but these are just for the information that a lot of literature, a lot of guidelines are available from them, and we can study them and modify them at as required for individual use at village level, at district level, at state level, and at the level of country, as well as the whole world as such. There are risk communication packages which were given. WHO, International Labour Organizations, and OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health, all these have given guidelines on these on a large, and it is not only in English but all several languages all over the world. This has been important way to communicate to people, to make them aware. No such, this is on such a large scale that everyone talks about now the COVID, irrespective of whether they are related to it or they are directly or indirectly. And that is why we need to protect from the COVID. the government of India has been very active on this area through the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and also interdisciplinary or interministerial collaboration and cooperation has been very effective in making this to work against these, or to try to prevent the transmission of the infection, as well as to minimize or to mitigate those infected and try to reduce. And we can definitely say that the data which is there, the worldwide data that is available, definitely Indian response has been good. Although, as Dr. Hiranandani has said, that we can do better, definitely there is room for improvement every time. We are taking into consideration our economic status, our developmental status, and the population, the various other aspects which are available to us. Our response to that has definitely fared well. There are several guidelines which are there to prepare, and what is the bottom line is that we should not panic. So accordingly, these guidelines are available from the Government of India in different languages, mygov.in or COVID-19, and these are the guidelines which are there and updated very frequently. As far as the education is concerned, the universities, the Government of India's Ministry of Education has given guidelines through various their agencies, through University Grants Commission and through the academic regulatory bodies, AICTE, the Medical Council, now the National Medical Commission, and several others in this line. There are generic preventive measures which are given to everybody, as well as on the educational campuses or educational system as such. Online educational guidelines are available, are made available on closing the campuses, and before reopening the campuses, there are modalities for physical opening of the colleges and healthcare institutions, and the higher education is given more priority over the intermediate level or the school level, and of course the more care is being taken for the children for controlling the pandemic related to these. There are also specific measures for colleges and health. These are all guidelines which are issued, and the safety measures to be taken at the time of entry, at the time in the school classrooms, how we should be placed, the social areas, the movement in the corridors, the canteen particularly, because many times we see that there are guidelines on the individual behavior as such, but when it comes to canteen or in terms of having food, they all open up their masks, and that is where loud talking and mixing up occurs. And these are the areas where even in hospitals or the areas where the healthcare staff had their lunches or their food were the areas where they could get infected through that, although all other times they are properly observing the appropriate behavior. And then there are some open spaces, the open kattas of colleges or the campuses. These are all the points which we should avoid in meeting them more frequently and without mask or without observing the social distancing as such. And of course, all the guidelines which are there are also there for the assessments, the internal assessment, the formative and the summative assessments which had to take place. In fact, the ways of certifying has also been changed. We have taken into consideration the problems which are associated with actual examination, and that is why the overall the pattern of the assessment and adding on more with the formative assessments should be encouraged, and that is how we may go for 50-50 or 40-60 assessments, which are external 40 and internal assessments 60%. So that these are the ways by which we have seen. This is one area of e-learning we have been benefited. I don't know whether really to put it as a beneficial on a large scale, but definitely this has been a substitution for the classrooms or the learning which is happening on the campuses, and there was a great achievement in this area in addition to other parameters which we are seeing. In fact, as a cartoon, there's a by Ponappa who said that she said her first ever full sentence as some number with new COVID cases. So in fact, the children are learning so much. They are so much listening to people talking about COVID in these terms. So it may look funny, but this is what the ground reality is. Now, how corona spreads, I don't have to say anything about corona virus and all that, but just to recap, because I was sure that Ravi would cover all these things. So just to make it, as appropriate for the, as a continuity of this, respiratory droplets and aerosols are generated when you cough, sneeze, breathe, sing, or shout, or speak loudly. And that is why we must avoid all these activities when you are in close spaces. We have to have close or prolonged personal contact by touching or by fomites also. There was initial guideline from the CDC that these are very important, but over a period of time, it has been realized that the fomites are not a major way of transmission unless they are very quickly happening or they are happening almost in a very close contact. Touching something with it, with the virus on it, and touching your mouth, nose areas with unwashed hands. These are also the ways by which the virus will spread. So try to avoid touching your face and mask. To prevent the spread, these are the common methods by which you have to carry on with washing your hands. Wash with soap and water as frequently as possible. But if it is not possible all the time, then you have a hand rub, alcohol-based or non-alcohol-based hand rub, which is effective and reported as found to be effective. And then you may wash your hands after 15-20 hand rubs, because the hand may get soggy with the emollients which are added to these, and hence hand wash with soap and water would be better. We cover the face, particularly the nose, with the tissues, the eyes, avoid touching with the nose, eyes and mouth with unwashed hands, and clean and disinfect. These are the mainstay of preventing the spread of this. Site safety for COVID-19, there could be some added campaigns or added notices which are given in the form of pictorial. You can fill in the language, local language, which is there for the visitors, for children, to keep away, maintaining the social distance. And in fact, so popular is these are that sometimes it may be a little more irritating when you get a phone call and you lose initial 50 seconds or a minute listening to those trying to tell you about how to prevent COVID and all that. But these are important things, and more repetition is required so that you can really maintain the distance, follow the guidelines which are given, wash hand regularly, etc., and wearing the PPE which are there. The COVID appropriate behavior. Many times it is said that you have to follow COVID appropriate behavior, and there are certain points in this. But it is not that it is restricted only to wearing mask, maintaining social distance, and covering your face and not or avoid touching eyes and mouth or nose. There are various ways by which it is done, and appropriately we have to say that you greet without physical contact, means not shaking the hands, but holding your hands and saying namaste or whatever way we can express your gratitude. Maintain social the physical distance of 2 meters, and that is the distance of minimum 3 feet from each body, and that is why it is said about 1.5 or more than 4 to 5 feet or 6 feet, because the droplets would not go beyond ordinarily beyond 3 feet from each body, and that is why this is the safer distance, or what we should not go too close to anyone, and that is the social distance which we have to maintain at 5 to 6 feet. Wear a reusable face cover and mask. Now, this reusable face cover and mask is something which we will see later, because depending on your occupation, the material for which from which this can be made is variable, and that is how that reusable word is having some distinction which can be taken. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. Maintain respiratory hygiene, that is important. Wash hands frequently and thoroughly, and that is for minimum 20 seconds. And when you are washing your hands, as we see, always try to how to spend that time. Otherwise, you may just say, touch the water and go. That is not so. So minimum 20 seconds, and you may try to greet your near and dear ones, remember them, or say happy birthday or good day to all your people in your own mind, and that is how try to time your wash action. Don't chew tobacco and spit in public places. This is not really related to COVID, but this has also made important contribution by way of putting mask and putting this habit under control to some extent. Although there are no data which is available from the manufacturers or the sellers for this. Regularly clean and disinfect frequently touch surfaces, avoid unnecessary travel, and these travel advisories are quite important related to occupational safety and health. Do not discriminate against anyone, discourage crowds. Now, this is an important area where we can avoid coming larger gatherings, and that is why all the guidelines which are issued or the directives which are issued from ministry, different ministries in relation with this, in maintaining the social distance, limiting the number of people, even in terms of the religious functions or death and other times which do require, and that is why many people are psychologically very much disturbed because they cannot really see the near and dear ones, although they are very seriously ill, or even in terms of death which has been observed in some of them. Do not circulate social media posts, and that is where Professor Ravi has said enough about WhatsApp University. But if we can use that medium, I'm not trying to blame that medium, but if you can use that medium, that also would be effectively used. But unfortunately, a lot of unedited, unregulated information is freely circulated, and that could be the negative aspect of social media. Seek information on COVID-19 from credible sources, and Government of India and other things have really come out with that, and periodically they are very useful. There are national toll-free lines and all the psychosocial support which is available for the anxiety and stress which goes with this. So this is like, something, a modified cartoon which should say here no COVID, see no COVID, or speak no COVID. And the supervisor is saying, say, for goodness, stop touching your face for these reasons when you want to say. Creative interventions to COVID is something which is an area which is more open, and lot of jugaad has happened in terms of managing COVID, in terms of social circles, in terms of infectious disease management, and in terms of the transmission prevention of these. There are a lot of talking walls which can be created, and this has been one of the innovative example of where we seek the behavior change in terms of the talking walls, which will speak about things to be done, and that virtually will try to educate that. A word of caution about the variants, which Ravi has very clearly said about what would be the variant of interest or concern or high concern. Fortunately, there are no variants of high concern which has been there. And it is like, if you try to target the variants which are there, like the chicken laying the eggs and trying to destroy those eggs, this is not going to stop, because it is billion years or more than billion years evolution that has given the power to the microbes, that they cannot be, they have the survival advantage. So they would try to do things which are there. Only thing is, our concern is try to prevent their contact or their prevention, and that is how we can make it. COVID vaccine has, which is made available to you, and this is one of the major area by which we can avoid the occupational risk and hazard in all the areas of occupations, and that is why as early as possible and as effectively possible we should vaccinate. Fortunately, Government of India has made it free to all, but only thing is about the logistic arrangements and the actual vaccination we have to take more initiative on this. Even institutional and other occupational bodies can also take care of this aspect on a larger scale. We have to avoid closed spaces, the crowded places, and try to have the gatherings which are a larger number of gatherings where singing, shouting will go on. And that is why we have to see that the capacity of any hall or any COVID space has to be minimum 50% level. We can use it. And if you can use it with open air or more ventilation, that would be more appropriate. Avoid close contact with anyone who has, in fact, the people who have even slightest doubt about this must get tested, and try to avoid the public places, which would be going by staying at home and away from others if you are feeling. And travel only when essential. In fact, you cannot travel abroad until 31st of July, as the latest guideline says. Wear a well-constructed fitting non-medical mask for general use. So there are people who are using N95 masks. Everyone, try to use it, but the mask may be N95, but if you are not properly using it, it is of no value, or it is of no use as such. We have to keep the number of contacts to a minimal. Common social or small consistent circles may be there. Avoid larger groups. Work at places. These are general guidelines which are used for protection, which are applicable in any occupation which is there. Do not neglect your personal care, maintain a social distance, and have good hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette. Now, these are the things which we need to learn more frequently, and not only to know, but you have to use it and do it, and really make it a point. And that is why many people have been under impression, although there are some other communications to that effect, that if you are vaccinated, you don't have to wear mask and all that. It is not so, because various reasons, as we have seen in Professor Ravi's presentation, that these are going to happen, and that communication is the one which is going to make you more vulnerable. So if not for others, for your own sake, you have to use the mask. And that is why it is important. And nobody should be made to compel you to do that. You have to do it on your own, though it is on a very important personal level that you have to use it. Respiratory etiquettes, coughing and sneezing in your own angle of arm or elbow is important. You should not do it. And there are people, we need to modify their behaviors and all these. So in the time of COVID, we have to have the smart PPE, the wearables that could be deployed and digitally map out. Now, there are areas by which we have done this into what are the stronger areas where we could achieve it. And there are ways and means by which we can definitely prevent occurring this at different industry levels. There are different norms which are given for each different occupation or industry. I will not go in details of this, but there are guidelines from WHO that for healthcare workplaces, what should be the guidelines and what should be the ones which are followed. For non-healthcare workplaces such as businesses, enterprises, the responsibility of protecting the health and safety of their workers is all that important, and how we can really do it. There are technical guidelines which are there, the points of entry and mass gatherings, the COVID advice for public at large, the travel and tourism, because these some of the industries have really made a backstage on this COVID situation. And important thing is that they have modified working styles in each industry, and when there are more and more of the digital world that is being more made active, or use of that digital transactions in terms of learning, in terms of some actions, in terms of your official work, etc., in terms of your teaching, and in terms of your assessments in teaching in educational institutes. All these have modified, and in turn, there has been modifications in the earnings of people who are in businesses or in occupations which have gone into the background. And that is where we need to re-understand the COVID situation and modify the businesses or modify the occupations accordingly. Healthcare workers' rights assume overall responsibility with that, provide information about the instructions and training on occupational safety as and when it is required to all the people. Refresher training was required even for the healthcare institutions, for the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare workers, the support staff in our hospitals and all other hospitals also. And quickly this cell was established, and it is still ongoing because there are challenges which are coming up in variable forms, and that is how we are taking it. In fact, we had to do a lot of trainings on donning and doffing of the PPE, the personal protective equipment, the sequence of how to put on and how to take off when the use is over. The working atmosphere or working environment has been modified. You cannot work for longer periods, so 4 to 6 hours was maximum one could put on really with the whole PPE in place in many healthcare institutions. And adequate the supplies are also important. All the stocks of these should be well maintained, and these are the areas where any compromise would lead to direct effect on the transmissions which would be affected, and that is why these are important. Some of the areas which are there are also important in this fashion, and that is because if you find that the different occupations are there and we are not allowed to physically go there, or working from home or remote working is all that is required, then how do we achieve that? All these and these modifications are important, because some of the modifications you cannot work, and that is why when we say that everything cannot be put online, there are some healthcare workers and frontline emergency responders which cannot work remotely, and they have to be there, and these are the ones who have really protected us. And our our response in the first wave and the case fatality rate is one of the best in the world, although we are not so good on the supply side of various medical support systems which are in place. Coronavirus has affected the economy to a large extent, and that is why we find that all over the GDP has gone down for several things. We have modified or the modified responses are there. This is one of the scene that was seen as a setback. The migrant workers had to travel and take additional risk of sleeping on the rail lines. General guidelines for travelers: adhere to physical distancing, facial covering, all these are important. Avoid unnecessary risk and exposure. Try to minimize the travel if it is possible. And in case it is not possible, then you may have to have specific reduction in the risk. Don't try to travel with the public transport, or have additional measures which are there. Prolonged presence on public places is to be minimized. Crowded settings, large gatherings are to be minimized. Travel to high risk areas with ongoing or widespread community transmission should be minimized, and that is why this e-pass and so e-governance has really made their impact by following or communicating with the population at large. And that is why we see that a lot of activities are there which can be, if not avoidable, then we have to take with the travel with the private vehicles, avoiding crowded areas, but within the bubble. The bio bubble, which was said for the games of cricket and other team games which were there, consistent facial covering was all that is required. Now, a point about masks. There are different masks, and a lot of fashion industry has worked up, and there are large corporate textile houses which have come with their own signature mask, face coverings which are there. But although we have N95 respiratory mask or medical grade surgical mask or disposable mask, and then homemade mask. For general use, homemade commercially manufactured face coverings, matching them. Even we have zari borders and all those masks which are there. The color matching, etc. All that, it's a opportunity for the new fashion designers also in that. But the masks which are for N95 and the medical grade masks are the ones which are for very important, and they are as per the risk which are involved with the occupation. We must be using them appropriately. And then there are some educational kind of mask or varieties that corona is a host, the denial, and these are the people who are going to have problems with that. But the mask, a proper mask of material should be made. The mega mask is, make America great again, and these are all the cartoons which were made during the first wave of the pandemic, which are with the pre-stitch holes and spread of the virus through sole purpose of owning the liberal. So, the point is that you must have a proper individual protection, and that is with the mask covering the areas of this. How to organize the meetings? There are detailed guidelines which have been given, and I would say that the organizers are important in planning of these with the potential risk, the risk in attending, and that is why a large number of communications or seminars have been replaced by webinars. They're happening on the web, on the digital platforms, on the e-learning platforms, and a lot of developments are occurring on this innovative ways by which this is conducted. Even in medical education, we've seen that although the actual physical training or the clinical training on patients is not which is avoidable on a large scale, but we definitely at DY Patil we have used this as a simulated cases and simulated lab which are made. Even the National Medical Council or the earlier MCI had insisted for the simulation labs, simulated patients, and these are the ones by which we can really try to reduce um, the exposure, unnecessary exposure to this. The check, the advice which is coming from the authorities, preparedness plan has to be there, and it is not to be made, but it is made available so that you display the plan of your action, the safety plan, the management plan of occupational health and safety. It is there. We could scale down some of the things with lesser number of people, but definitely on a large scale we can use the digital platform when and where possible. This there are various people who have displayed their safety plans on the buses, and the wellness checks, the hand hygiene, insisting on the ventilation, mask, the social distancing, and all that. We must have these plans. So every individual occupation or the establishment has to have their plan, and they displayed it so that. But major focus has to be on physical distancing, on hand hygiene and cleaning, and on the record keeping of these. Particularly, we have to modify the way people are working, especially when they are falling sick. They have to report, and in the form of that, even you have to modify your policies of sickness leave, etc., so that then they would be encouraged to inform about their sickness. Otherwise, they will try to hide it. And so like this, there are various safety plans and things which are made about this. The in the form of the communications which are there, the posters and the signages which are put up, and about the availability of things which are seen. And if you are not well, you stay in, get tested, isolate, and your employer, you inform the employer, and you may get leave in lieu of that. Or even there are, when we say that when the government of India said that 50% only should attend the school, so that their wages are to be covered, their income has to be protected, their insurance in terms of the health has to be taken care of, in addition to the measures that we take. This is from NSW government posters. There are various ways by which this has been done and displayed given by CDC, by WHO, by Government of India, and made by individual occupational houses also. So, okay, this is about that. Now, this is something which just a word about the this is a cartoon, not encouraging this or trying to own it like this, but this is one cartoon which I came to know and saw it, that evolution of Bill Gates, and this is something which is very shaky in terms of dual use research, because it is very bad. But anyway, what we would say at the end is we have the talking walls, which would try to have give the support to those frontline workers which are there. I think I missed one or two slides. Yeah, that's it. So I think I will stop here and try to take questions which are there. There are. Hello.
Thank you,
Asha,
sir.
over to you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We'll now be taking the question.
Yes.
So the first question is, what are the benefits of a double mask?
All right. The mask is used and has to be appropriately used. That is one. But it is found that if you are using a surgical mask, it has got a protective way, and there is one hydrophobic surface, or the one which tries to reject the outer surface, which would not get wet very easily, and the inner surface, because when it is a triple layer, there is one filtering plane which is in the center. So if you are using a double mask, if you are using a single mask or a cloth mask which is there, you should use this surgical mask or the medical mask as a first mask, and also try to see that it is snugly fitting on the on your face. Okay, so when you are using a double mask, then there are chances that it would be more effective. Although a single mask, single N95 mask is good enough, you don't have to really go for it. And those who are not involved in direct patient care, or in your own home or in the hospitals as your occupation, then you may not use double mask. You can use single mask and properly fitting mask. It should be on the face, covering the nose and the mouth area, and should not be hanging below your chin.
Second question is, many offices are utilizing some UV mode of disinfection for their office documents. How good is that?
It's not really required. It is not required that you have to use the UV radiation, because UV radiations are only for the surface, and they don't really traverse through the papers, even as thin paper as paper. So it is of no use as such. In fact, in case you have a good disinfection policy, that should be enough for your own area of workplace.
Okay. Third question is, has coronavirus become airborne?
No. Airborne is a very misnomer kind of use that has been up and down, even from WHO and CDCs. There are communications which are opposite to each other. The point here is it is airborne to a short distance, because these are transmitted through droplets. So airborne is only for a very short distance, say about about 2 meters, 1.5 to 2 meters. So if you are using this as a distance, then definitely, even if it is airborne and you are maintaining the distance, that will definitely try to prevent this transmission. But in terms of airborne transmission, it is not so. As we see with influenza virus, it traverses long distance, it is airborne, and that is why when you are putting up or treating the patients, you have to have a proper negative control treatment rooms, etc.
Okay, we'll take the last question, sir.
Yeah.
How safe are sanitizers in the long run?
sanitizers are not something which are used on the skin, are not for long term use as such. It is used on your hands or on the surfaces where you are using it, and you are using it for some time. Second point is from the fomites, from the areas where you are trying to sanitize the areas, etc. Well, that should be done as a part of cleaning or disinfection. But as it was thought of that it is the one which is really responsible for transmission, has not been proved beyond doubt. And that is why if we observe safe distance, if you observe using of mask and hand hygiene, that should be good enough in trying to prevent for personal safety.
Thank you, sir. We'll take one last question. Alcohol and non-alcohol based disinfectants, which one is better?
No, both are good. Alcohol based is something which is well known and has been proved beyond doubt and for a longer term. The non-alcohol based ones are have to be proved, and it is not only that some material has got disinfectant properties and that is why it is good, or this has stood the test of time, but it has to be tested and shown in the lab that it is really showing antibacterial effect or the effect within 10-15 seconds and the contact time, and after that only we can approve of it as a usable one. So quality control of the disinfectants or hand hygiene or chemicals are something which is important.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this informative session. We really needed these guidelines now that lockdown will be released and all of us will be stepping out for our workplaces. So thank you to the audience. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Over to Ms. Amina and Ms. Priyanka for the next session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abhay, sir, for such a wonderful session. I'm sure all of us are now well versed with the guidelines that we need to follow when we step out. I think at this point, we take a 2 minutes break and we start with the third session with Dr. Indranil Banerjee. So the time is 12:17. I request everyone to be back by 12:20. We start sharp at 12:20 again. Monish, can we pause the recording and the YouTube streaming? Shall we start? I think it's 12:20. Priyanka, you may take over the session 3. Hello, sir. Good afternoon, Indranil, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to introduce the next speaker for the session 3 on ongoing scientific research on understanding SARS-CoV-2 infection mechanisms, Dr. Indranil Banerjee. Sir is Assistant Professor in the Cellular Virology Laboratory, Department of Biological Sciences, Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, that is IISER Mohali. Sir has obtained his PhD degree and postdoctoral fellowship from the Zurich Institute. He has several fellowships and uploads to his name. Sir currently has his research interest in the field of virus-host interactions, drug discovery, and epidemiology of infectious diseases like influenza virus, SARS-CoV-2, and dengue. Sir has received the Pfizer Research Award in Immunology and Infectious Diseases in 2016. He has also several fellowships to his name. The Presidential Fellowship of the Novartis Pharma. He was an MIT and Harvard University exchange student and received his PhD fellowship from the Molecular Life Sciences Graduate Program, Zurich. He has more than 20 publications in several national and international journals. Sir has also received a patent for new treatment against influenza viruses. He has several editorial responsibilities as well. Sir is the editor of virology for Current Clinical Microbiology Reports, Springer, and is a guest editor of virology for Frontiers in Microbiology. His CV lab is mentoring and guiding several PhD students. I would now like to invite him to start with his session.
Yeah, thank you so much for this kind introduction. I hope, I wish my wife was also present here. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizing committee and the HS and NC University and KC College for giving me the opportunity to participate in the stimulating conference. Today, I'd like to talk about the research which is ongoing on coronavirus, especially how coronavirus interacts with the host cell. All right, I'll begin my presentation, but since my presentation is quite heavy, I will switch off my video for the time being, and once the presentation is over, I can turn it on to take questions. All right? I can share my screen. Okay, is a slide visible to all?
Yes, sir.
All right. So today I'm going to talk about the interactions of SARS-CoV-2 with the host cells. And that is essential to take out the information from SARS-CoV-2, how it gets inside the cell and how the cell assists the virus to establish a successful infection. So ever since the emergence of this novel coronavirus in the Wuhan province of China in December 2019, the world has been synchronized to a very peculiar clock, which is not counting hours and minutes, but counting infected cases and deaths. The pandemic for the last 1.5 years or so by SARS-CoV-2 has indeed caused considerable morbidity, mortality, and economic damage, and drastically changed our everyday lives. For example, my younger daughter was admitted to kindergarten last year in March, but she will not get a chance to go to her school. So if she gets a chance to go to a school in the coming year, that means that she'll never get a chance to go to kindergarten in her entire life. This is how COVID has changed our day-to-day lives, right? So SARS-CoV-2 is not the first coronavirus that is known to humans. In fact, It is the 7th coronavirus that can infect us. Coronaviruses, just let me get the pointer. So coronaviruses are the members of the subfamily Coronavirinae in the family Coronaviridae, and this is under the order Nitovirales. This subfamily consists of 4 genera: alpha coronavirus, beta coronavirus, gamma coronavirus, and delta coronavirus. And this is on the basis of their phylogenetic relationships and genomic structures. The alpha coronaviruses and beta coronaviruses, they infect only mammals, and the gamma coronaviruses and delta coronaviruses infect birds, but some of them can also infect mammals. Alpha coronaviruses and beta coronaviruses usually cause respiratory illness in humans and sometimes gastroenteritis in animals. And the 3 highly pathogenic viruses like SARS, MERS, and SARS-CoV-2 cause severe respiratory syndromes in humans. And that's why they're called the severe respiratory viruses. And the other 4 human coronaviruses like 229E, NL63, OC43, and HK1 induce only mild upper respiratory diseases in immunocompetent hosts. But some of them can cause severe infections in infants, young children, and elderly individuals. Now, talking about the origin of coronaviruses. So we must know that all coronaviruses have caused disease to humans have had animal origins. Generally, either in bats, here you can see the bats, and other rodents. On the basis of current sequence databases, human coronaviruses like SARS-CoV, SARS-CoV-2, MERS, then 229E, NL63. So these are derived from bats. In case of SARS and MERS, they are transmitted from animals like palm civet and camels. And there are some early speculations that SARS-CoV-2 emerged from a man-made manipulation of an existing coronavirus. But there's no concrete evidence to support such a theory. And now it seems that it is probably impossible to prove or disprove the other theories of SARS-CoV-2 origin. So coming to the structure of SARS-CoV-2, as you all know by now that SARS-CoV-2 is an enveloped virus, and it has different components. And most importantly, it is having a single positive sense RNA genome, and it encodes 5 structural proteins and 16 non-structural proteins. So on the surface of the coronavirus, it has the enveloped glycoprotein. This is called the spike protein or S protein, which is responsible for recognizing the host cell receptors. Then there's another protein called the hemagglutinin esterase, or HE, which acts as a classical glycan binding lectin and receptor degrading enzyme. However, the role of HE in particular remains poorly understood. It is postulated that HE and S, the spike glycoprotein and the HE, are functionally intertwined, and that receptor destruction and receptor binding need to be carefully balanced for efficient attachment of the virus on the cell surface. Then comes the M protein, or the membrane protein, and this protein is responsible for giving shape to the virions. And there's another protein called the E protein, which is responsible for virion assembly and release from the host cell. Here you can see the cross-sectional view of a coronavirus, and I have described the other protein, which is tightly packed inside this viral core. And you can also see that there's a protein called N protein here. This is called the nucleocapsid protein, which is involved in packaging the RNA genome, the virions. And this N protein also plays a role in pathogenicity as it inhibits interferon. Coming to the genome architecture of SARS-CoV-2. So like others SARS viruses, like SARS or MERS viruses, the genome size of coronavirus is also very large, and it ranges between 29.8 to 29.9 kb. And the genomic structure of coronavirus contains at least 6 open reading frames, which are called ORFs. The first ORFs is ORF1 and 1A and 1B. And these ORFs are located at the 5' end. And this occupies about 2/3 of the whole genome of corona. And these are then subsequently cleaved into smaller proteins. And there are other ORFs which are located on the 3' region of the genome. And this encodes at least 4 structural proteins like the spike protein, the E protein, the M protein, and the nucleocapsid N protein. So now coming to the life cycle of coronaviruses, how coronaviruses can access to the cell interior and turn this host cell, as a manufacturing unit of new protein viruses. So let us just very quickly go through the schematic or an animation. So surface, and this are the human receptors of coronaviruses. This is S2. I'll go into the details how the viral attachment takes place. It's not that straightforward. However, for simplicity's sake, I've just kept it simply here. Attachment. The virus is internalized into endosomes. That's not the only process in which the virus can access to the cell. Sometimes the virus can also get fused at the plasma membrane and release its genome into the cytosol. All right. So here the virus is taking advantage of the cellular endocytosis process to gain access to the cell interior. And as the endosome moves towards the cell interior, towards the nucleus, the pH of the endosome drops. And that is a cue for the enzymes which are present in the late endosomes or lysosomal.
Sir, you're not audible.
To get activated, some gene, the virus will. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So are you audible till the part of endocytosis?
Yes, sir.
All right. So as the pH drops, then the enzymes which are present in the late endosomal and lysosomal compartments get activated, and this leads to the fusion or penetration viral proteins. And these viral proteins are then processed through Golgi. Some of the viral proteins are processed through Golgi, and then they move to the cell periphery for their assembly, and eventually new viral particles out of. This is, in a nutshell, how SARS the electron microscopic image, one of the very early images of SARS-CoV-2. Here you can see the SARS pointer. You can see the SARS viruses which are budding off from the cell surface. And here in this video, you can see that in the tissue culture cells, how the virus is infecting cells are getting infected with the virus.
So is that a video? It's not playing then.
It's not playing. Oops.
No, sir.
There could be some issues here. I don't know. Sorry for that. Nevertheless, it's not that important.
Okay.
Not that important. So one of the peculiarities of the coronavirus infection is positive stranded RNA virus. Process is supported by an elaborate virus-induced network, which is shown here. And this is nothing but the transformed endoplasmic reticulum, also known as the virus replication organelle, or RO. And these double membrane vesicles, or DMVs, are the ROs which are most abundant component, and these serve as central hubs for viral RNA synthesis. The interior of these DMVs accumulate dominantly the intermediates of viral genome replication and subgenomic RNA synthesis. So what is the advantage of DMVs? Importantly, it may also shield viral RNA from innate immune sensors that are activated by the viral RNAs which are produced in the cells. So here you can see the trial, you can see and is also called the double membrane vesicles, and these are artificially assembled and they're getting associated with these membranes. And this is also the electron tomograph of coronavirus-induced DMPs, where you can see the viral genome is present, and these are the viral coronaviruses, be it SARS-CoV or SARS-CoV-2. So they induce the formation of these DMPs so as to ensure that their genome is synthesized in a closed and protected environment, and they are not affected by the other innate immune
Sorry
system.
to interrupt, sir.
All right.
Sorry, sir.
So,
sir, can
yes.
we go full screen on slide? And if you have changed the slide, I think we're still stuck on one of. Yeah, there's some lag in the screen sharing, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Is this fine now? Can you see the architecture of the?
So we can see the slide on life cycle of SARS-CoV-2.
It's still
yes, the slide number 8.
Maybe I can just. Wow. Is it moving or it is not moving? It is not moving. Maybe
yeah, try reshare.
Start sharing the. All right. Sorry about that. I don't know why it is happening. Can you see it now?
So not as yet. I think there's a lag. It will come. Not as yet.
On my screen, it is moving and running. Wow. So you can see something or everything is blank there?
No, sir, it just says that you have started the screen sharing, but the screen is not seen as such. Monish, what can be done?
Share my screen. I really don't know.
Oh, ma'am, I guess there is a net issue. That's your end.
Is it fine or it is still stuck?
No, sir, it isn't there as yet.
So what I can do, I can leave the meeting and come back. Maybe that would help. I don't know. But for me, it's working fine. And
Sir, if you could send us,
I
and if you
can
want us to share, that can be done.
try again.
If you want us to share the PPT,
But it's a pretty large file.
okay, okay.
That's why I just close the PPT and then open it. See.
Okay, sir.
That's why I kept my video off. And there is Is my PPT visible?
So it will come up. It's just a blank screen right now.
Mm-hmm. So what I can do, I can very quickly turn my PPT into PDF. Not be able to Is it visible?
Not yet, sir.
The PDF is also not visible.
No, sir.
Oh, that's,
Sir, can you rejoin the meeting, sir?
I think I have to do that. Yes, I'll try to rejoin.
Munish, can we stop the live streaming?
Ma'am, sir has joined back.
Have you made Sir the co-host?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
So I'll try to share the screen again. Let's see. Does it work now?
Not yet.
No. Oh. Okay. Totally blank.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So we
if
can see it.
this is the case, I would rather go without slides. You can see now?
Yes, so the slide is seen.
All right. You can see the full slide, right?
It's not a full view mode, full screen view. It's not that.
I don't know, something weird is happening. Anyways, you can see something, so I can proceed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can proceed.
All right. So as I was telling you that, do you see the DMV structure, the double membrane structure in the right side?
So we see the full screen now with the life cycle, I think, and there's the genome of the particle, virus particle.
All right. I'll try to proceed to the next slide. Can you see now or start?
It's not moved, sir.
So PDF. I don't know. So what I can do, I can just summarize what I wanted to tell. Maybe I just
Ma'am, can I suggest
sharing
something?
my screen and start my.
Yes, Ajra.
Ma'am, can I suggest something?
Yes, what is it, sir? Was it?
So if sir is having some heavy bulky files or video files or animation, what he can do is he can shift them to the desktop or some other folder, remove it from the presentation and then screen share the presentation and the videos separately. So he'll just have to keep resharing different screens for the video animation and the presentation. That will help. That should help at least.
But the PDF was also, Ajra, there was an issue with that. Okay. So up to you, sir.
So, okay, so I just tried. Can you see it now? Can you see this? Okay. That's fine. I just rather summarize what I wanted to tell, but I cannot, we cannot wait for a long time.
Yes, sir, I think.
Rather summarize what I wanted. So let me go to any slide that works. Huh? So are you seeing something yet or not yet?
No, sir.
No. Close the PowerPoint presentation, rather let me talk. And
yes.
All right. The coronaviruses, they enter the cell and they induce a formation of a double membrane vesicle. Okay, and this serve as a replication organelle for coronaviruses to propagate. All right, and am I audible too? Am I audible?
So you're not very clearly audible.
Slowly. I mean, there's some connection issue. Receptor is 2, and but S2 is not sufficient to ensure that coronaviruses would penetrate at the plasma membrane, because the receptor needs to attach to the spike protein, and the spike protein is a trimeric complex, right? It is like this, and the spike protein consists of two domains, S1 domain and S2 domain. And at the S1, S2 boundary, there's a furin cleavage site. And this is a site on which the enzymes would come and cleave the molecules. And what will happen, the S1 subunits will fall apart, exposing the S2 subunit, which will have a fusogenic peptide. And this fusogenic peptide will insert into the membrane, and that will cause the merger of the viral membrane. And this is how the virus enters the cell, but there has been an explosion of coronavirus coronavirus research in the recent two, which is responsible for the viral European 1, CD147, so on and so forth. These are the core receptors which help the virus to get internalized and of the coronaviruses, but unfortunately due to some why coronavirus research is so central and important to get over the crisis that we are currently having. All right, thanks for the suggestion. I'll turning off my video. So in our lab, we have been interested in, so currently all the antivirals that are present in the market, they are targeted against the virus itself. And what is the downside of this antiviral is that since they're targeting the virus, if the virus mutates very fast, then this antiviral's resistance in for strategy. Instead of targeting the virus particles, which provide critical assistance to the virus during its entry and replication. So what is the advantage of identifying and targeting the host cell factors, that is our own genes or our own proteins, is that there's extremely less likelihood of virus-induced resistance to proteins. And using the same strategy, we are genes or our own proteins and in the way it's totally blocked. So this work was done in collaboration with IIT Roper and CSIR Intech in Chandigarh. This compounds blocked influenza entry by more than 99% to in presence of this compounds. Now we are trying to understand like what exactly these compounds are doing. Are they targeting the virus or are they targeting the host cells? As I told you that the host cell factors are targeted. Recently we found that if you just incubate viruses with these molecules, so we are now going to do the animal studies. We have done the animal studies on influenza. We found fantastic results with these drugs. And we would like to do the same with coronaviruses for SARS-CoV-2. We had the patients isolate extremely important RNA from them and then did RT-PCR. We found that out of 6 compounds, only 3 showed reduction in the viral titer, but the other 3 did not show any reduction. What does this suggest? This suggests that budding, but others may target the virus budding process. The virus may enter, but they all from the host cells. This is where we stand, and unfortunately, due to this technical glitch, I have to stop here, and I think my time is also up. I'm free to take questions. I don't know whether you'll have.
Sir, I request you to, if you could give us a kind of a extract from your talk so that, we could pass it on to the participants. I think it would be helpful, sir.
A couple of days ago, and it worked smoothly. But there's something either in my computer or in the connection.
Yeah, sometimes it happens and it's beyond our control, sir.
Outside of online presentations,
yes.
Sometimes find.
Over to you, Amina.
And,
Sir, I do have a question for you. If you could answer that. Can you, the lung damage that is done in the process of the infection when the COVID virus gets in, is that irreversible or irreparable in nature, or no? Can the damage be repaired eventually?
So it's a good question. As far as lung is concerned, there are different regions of the lungs, and depending on which region is affected by the virus, that will tell whether the lung will self-repair over time, or there will be a permanent damage due to viral infection. Right? There are certain regions where the regions are enriched with the stem cells, which can regenerate parts of the lungs. If these parts are infected, the stem cells will get activated and repopulate damaged areas. Whereas enriched, here, if the virus is really badly infected, or if the region is really badly infected by the virus to the lungs. But having said so, I'm very optimistic because lung is an organ which can self-repair very quickly. I would assume that although it might have some detrimental effects on certain regions, but mostly it will recover over time. It may take some time, it may take a long time to recover, but eventually it will recover. With healthy individuals.
Thank you, sir. So one more question that I have is, could you shed some light on the news arising about the black fungus and relating that to the COVID infection?
Yeah, I personally think that this is a byproduct of corona infection. So what happens in the corona infected patients is that it is not clear like what is the real source of this fungus, right? So the corona patients are treated with high doses of steroids, and like when steroids are given for a long time in high doses, the immunity of our body is compromised, and this leads to opportunistic infections by many pathogens, that is, bacterial pneumonia or even fungus. And I personally think that the fungus is a consequence of long-range treatment with steroids.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, last question. How are the target sites chosen when choosing a drug for treating the particular infection?
It's a very good question. So depending on the targets, so you can either target the viral encoded proteins or you can target the host cell proteins. If you're targeting the host cell proteins, this is called the host-directed therapy, which I think is a future, but there's a downside of it. What is that? If a protein is present in our body, so it must have its own function. If you are tweaking with its function, if you're disrupting its function, then what will be the consequence of it, right? So the genes which are supporting viral infection also has its own function in the cell. If you're targeting those genes, then how the cell will remain healthy, that is a question. You target one particular gene, there would be possibilities for some genes that they'll have redundancies in their functions. So if you shut down one particular pathway or one particular gene, maybe other genes will take over their functions. In that way, you can silence the function of a particular protein. The other proteins will take over their functions, and eventually the cells will remain healthy. Ideally, the targets should efficiently block the infection, but should not be detrimental to the cells, right? So these are the ideal targets, and it's extremely difficult to find such targets. So if your screen say 25,000 genes, if you're lucky enough, you may get targeted, and which will not have any effect if they're silenced temporarily on the cells.
Thank you, sir. The questions are just pouring in.
Questions.
Yes. I'll just read them out for you. So what is your opinion that whether this virus is actually man-made, and if it is man-made and originated in China as the news is speculating, is a biological war due in the future?
Well, if you ask me, I personally do not think that this virus could be man-made. Why? There are different reasons, and people differ on this. Many people say that it was man-made, it was then leaked out. But looking at the genome isolated, it differed from the original SARS-CoV at 380 different locations on their genome. All right, these are the mutations. And we also engineer viruses regularly in our labs. But what we have found out that if you introduce any mutation, most of these mutations which are artificially included or introduced into the genome, they are detrimental to the virus. The viruses which come out are not fit to survive. It is through natural they propagate in a population, right? So if SARS-CoV-2 was man-made, if I were to make a SARS-CoV-2 from SARS, I would not introduce 380 random mutations. I would not introduce a pluripotent site, because knowing very well that this will interfere with the entry, with the first receptor recognition function of the virus. I'll not tweak in this region. I'll make some changes, but not to a great extent. It is like, just blindly cherry picking something and thinking that I've made a monster. It does not happen like that. Okay, so I whether they already isolated the virus and stored them in their I personally, this is my personal view, I might be wrong, but I personally think that is not possible.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the Faculty of Science and Technology at HSMC University, I would like to extend my gratitude to you, sir. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and delivering the talk today. It was very informative. Yes, I do believe that the network issues did cause a lag, but yes, that is not something that we can overcome easily, as we are having difficulty with the coronavirus as well. So thank you so much for taking out your time and answering all the questions patiently as well. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. I'm really thank you to all for giving me this opportunity, but I'm equally sorry because I could not present what I prepared for you. Right. So, anyways, and I wish everybody all the best, and I hope that very soon we'll be able to overcome this deadly situation, and we'll have our own Independence Day very soon. Independence from self-isolation, independence from wearing masks, independence from the fear of our nears and dears getting killed by the virus. And wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I request all the participants to please fill up the feedback form that is there for in the chat box for today's sessions that we have had. I wish we could serve you lunch, but in this virtual setup, it won't be possible. So we can quickly take a lunch break, and we can be back by, we'll start at 1:40. Okay, so
virus, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So 1:40, we should be back, all of us. I hope all the UG participants have got their code numbers and they are ready with their presentations. Okay, and we will have to give the screen sharing rights. So session in charges, please share that with Monish so that they are enabled to share the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we begin sharp at 1:40. Please, all of you all